Welcome back to our continuation for our topic about polar molecules and nonpolar molecules. So we already have discussed about how we are going to determine whether a molecule is polar or nonpolar using your electronegativity difference and as well as knowing its shape and structure. So now we are going to proceed with the properties of molecules. I'm so sorry again. I just rushed mali dyan eh. Ano to? And so magsaba naman jud kayo kusog man kay si auntie mo istorya we. Alright, so hello everyone, and we are back with our continuation of our first video, which is all about determining the polarity and the molecular geometry of some molecules. And aside from that, is we also um, discussed about how to get the electronegativity difference and how to determine whether a molecule is polar or non-polar. So for this lesson, we are going to discuss about the polarity of molecules still and its properties. So if you can still remember, polar molecules have partially positive and negative ends. When two polar molecules are near each other, the negative end of one molecule is attracted to the positive end of the other. Now, for example, this is an example of a water molecule, and water molecules are polar molecules. So, diri sa ato ang hydrogen kani siya is partially positive charged, and diri sa ato ang ends ang iyahang uh, or rather, sorry, kaning blue dinhi is your oxygen atom, and this is partially negative, and these are your hydrogen atoms, which are partially positive. So mura siya og kanang magnet nga opposite attracts, no? So kung kaning positive end niya is attracted sa negative end sa another nga polar nga molecule. So this water molecule is attracted to the other. That is the reason why nga mag-interact or naga-interact ang imuhang polar molecules, no? Because they have an attraction between the partial positive and the partial negative ends of the molecule. Now, the separation of charges result in a strong force of attraction between the molecules. Muna siya ang reason nga nung kusog ang attraction between these water molecules because of their partially negative and partially positive ends. How about nonpolar molecules? Now, nonpolar molecules do not have positive or negative ends, if you can still remember. That is why ang neighboring nonpolar molecules, ang ilang attraction is very, very minimal. Example of that is this. This is a CO2 molecule or carbon dioxide, which are which are nonpolar. Therefore, there's a minimal force of attraction between the molecules. If you can see here, wala kay siya attraction, no? Dulay na-form na murag bonds between molecules. Murag bangga-bangga lang siya, tapos mabalhin po sa uban. Ang kaning isa, ning water, kung mapansin ninyo, naagid siya attraction, no, with another water molecule. So, muna siya ang kalahian sa polar and non-polar molecules in terms of interaction with another nga mga polar and non-polar molecules. So, what is the connection between polarity and some properties? So, natin mga gatawag ng mga properties. So, how do you relate the strength of attraction between the molecules to their observable properties? So, ako i-present karon kay ang mga different types of properties, no? So, first we have solubility. So, solubility is the ability of a solid substance to be dissolved in a given amount of solvent, whereas miscibility is the ability of two liquids to combine or mix in all proportion, creating a homogeneous mixture. In simpler terms, solubility is ang capacity sa imong solid nga ma-dissolve sa imong liquid. Whereas ang miscibility is ang ability sa imong duha ka liquids nga mag-mix. Okay? Solubility, solid and liquid, ma-mix. Miscibility, kay liquid and liquid na ma-mix. So, unsa ba ang connection sa polarity sa solubility or miscibility? Always remember this rule. No? The rule of thumb in this property is like dissolves like, or like mixes with like. Always remember that polar molecules can only be dissolved in polar molecules, or polar molecules are miscible with polar molecules, and nonpolar can dissolve nonpolar, but polar molecules and nonpolar molecules cannot dissolve or are not soluble, no? Di sila mag-mix. So, why is that? Polar solute dissolves in polar solvent, ingon ko. Then nonpolar solute dissolves in nonpolar solvents. But dili mag-mix ang polar and nonpolar. Why is that? It's because of ato kong gipakita kaganina nga example, no? Sa inyo nakitaan ang polar, no? Ang polar nga molecules kay na siya partial nga positive ang negative ends. Moto siya nga makabond siya or maka-interact siya with another polar molecule nga naay positive or negative ends pod, because like dissolves like. Because mag-interact ang imuhang positive and negative nga ends, no, or negative and positive nga ends sa imuhang polar molecules. Muna siya nga na interaction between polar solvents and polar solutes. Okay? Mo po ni siya ang reason nga nung oil and water dili siya magmix maski unsaon nimo siya og ukay, no? It's because water is a polar molecule while oil is a non-polar molecule. Remember the rule, like dissolves like. So therefore dili gid siya mag-mix. Now, let us proceed with the second property, which is melting point. It is the temperature at which a solid turns into liquid. Heat is needed to break the forces of attraction between the molecules. Alright? So, kani siya, melting point, mo ni siya ang temperature, no? Kung ito siya i-measure with a thermometer, mo ni siya ang temperature wherein ang imuhang solid nga substance, mo melt siya into liquid. For example, is ice, tapos mo melt siya into liquid water. So, muna siya ang gitawag ang temperature, ana nga time nga mag-melt ang ice to liquid water. Ang tawag na is melting point. What is the connection? Right? Here's the explanation. Because the polar molecules have relatively stronger forces of attraction compared to non-polar ones, greater amount of heat must be applied to break these forces. Therefore, in general, polar molecules have higher melting points than non-polar molecules. Always remember that rule, ha? Polar molecules have higher melting points than non-polar molecules. Ngano gani? Kay kusog ang attraction between polar molecules to another polar molecule, no? Kusog ang attraction. So, kinahanglan siya og mas daghan nga energy in the form of heat para ma-break to siya nga mga attraction or mga bonds. That is why higher ang iyang melting point. Alright? Diba? Taas ang heat, taas imong temperature. So, muna siya nga higher po ang imong melting point. Again, remember, polar molecules mas taas og melting point kaysa sa non-polar molecules. Next is boiling point. Boiling point is again another property wherein it is a temperature at which liquid turns to gas. Right? So, ang melting point is from solid to liquid, iyang temperature. Whereas ang boiling point is from liquid to gas. For example, is liquid water, karon siya mahimong steam, di ba? Pag magpabukal tag tubig, na may mugawas nga singaw. So, kanang singaw, muna na siya ang gaseous form sa atuang water. So, pag measure nimo ana, pila ba ang boiling point, no? Example, for water, we have 100 degrees Celsius ang boiling point sa imuhang water. So, sabay connection sa polarity. So, similar to the melting point, greater amount of heat is needed to break the forces of attraction of polar molecules compared to non-polar ones. Generally, polar molecules have higher boiling points than non-polar molecules. So again, tungod kay kusog ang interaction between polar and another polar molecule, mo na siya nga mas lisod siya i-break ang bond using heat, right? So kailangan siya daghan og heat. So pag daghan kay siya heat, or daghan ka siyang energy ng imuhang gibutang para ma-break ang bond, syempre mutaas ang imuhang temperature. That is the reason why polar molecules have higher boiling points than non-polar molecules. Same with melting point. Remember that trend. Okay, so other properties of substances no, na maapektuhan because of the polarity of the molecules are, first is surface tension. This is the energy needed to increase the surface area by a unit amount. And another one is viscosity, the resistance of the liquid to flow. Ibig sabihin, if a certain liquid is more viscous, that means, kada bitang dugay ka siya mahulog, pilit kaayo siya. Pag less viscous, that means it is mas free siya to flow. Right? Example is honey and water. Asa mas viscous ilaha? Correct, ang honey. Kay lisod ka siya ipa-flow, dili pareha sa water. Another property is vapor pressure. This is the pressure exerted by a substance in its gaseous state. So, pag mo mahimo ng gas ang isa ka, for example, liquid, no? Ana siya pressure nga gina-exert ang gas. So, ang measurement anang pressure nga gina-exert sa gas is what we call the vapor pressure. The last property is volatility. So, this is the measure of the rate at which substance vaporizes. So, pag matag vaporize, again, change from liquid to gas. Kung unsa ba kapaspas, volatility is the measurement of the rate. Rate means speed, no? Sa kapaspas nga ang isa ka liquid mahimo siyang gas, no? Nga na siya. So the more volatile, syempre mas paspas mo himong mo transform from liquid to gas ang imong isa ka substance. So mo ni siya ang general properties of polar and non-polar molecules. So atong i-compare, alright, ang polar molecules and non-polar molecules. So the first one is ang ihang IMFA. Actually, kaning intermolecular forces of attraction is next pa nato ni nga lesson na i-tackle, no? Pero pahapyaw lang, no? Ang IMFA type sa polar molecules could either be H bond or hydrogen bonding and dipole-dipole moments. No, whereas sa non-polar molecules ang ihang IMFA type kay London dispersion forces, and I will discuss these three types of IMFA on the next video. Okay, next is ang polar molecules usually or could either be solid or liquid at room temperature. So pag room temperature, that means normal lang, no? Dili bugnaw sa ref, dili pod sing init, no, sa nasa gawas ba nga temperature. So normal lang, room temp, no? So kadalasan solid siya or liquid yang form. However, ang non-polar most of the time kay gas at room temp. Man-ani mo na siya nga difference. So, polar molecules have high boiling point, high melting point, and high surface tension. Remember these three. Remember, ako na ni siya pong gi-explain nga nung taas ang boiling point sa polar, taas ang melting point sa polar. It's because of the strong attraction between polar molecules. So, opposite siya, there is a non-polar. Non-polar have molecules have low boiling point, low melting point, and low surface tension. Pero kabaliktaran siya diri sa ato ang polar molecules diri sa kanina, no? So diri sa polar molecules, low ang ato ang vapor pressure and low ang volatility. Ano kaya? While sa pikas is high, ang vapor pressure ug high volatility. Ano kaya? Remember, because diri na part. Remember, ang polar mong is solid or liquid at room temp. Diba? Tapos remember, ang vapor pressure ug volatility is mo ni siya ang measure kasagaran sa gaseous state, diba? Mo na siya kay tungod kay gas man ang non-polar at room temp, mo na mas taas pud ang iyang vapor pressure ug volatility. Okay? And then the last one is polar molecules are soluble in water. Syempre, ako na pong explain because water is a polar molecule. Remember the rule of thumb? Like dissolves like. That is why polar molecules are soluble in water. Whereas nonpolar molecules are insoluble in water, which means dili ma-dissolve sa tubig. Okay? So those are the differences between the general properties of polar and non-polar molecules. Now you are now ready to proceed to the next activities, which are what's more, assessment, and additional activities, but only answer number one. Okay, that is my instruction for all of you. So see you in our next video and our next lesson, which is all about intermolecular forces of attraction. So that ends our um, discussion on the topic polarity of molecules. Bye!